Hello, assalamu alaikum, good morning, khushamdi, ji ayanu, goeiemorgen, bakhair ragale, washmale, tunishumi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Well this morning after, well, a weekend. 2 days we do take off. This is Shaza Hashmi on PTV World for your very favorite breakfast show over here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, for all of those who are coming out of the weekend very high-spirited, good luck to you for the entire week. But when we do talk about the weekend, while, a lot of people might have been busy taking the 2 days off from work, there was something very important that the entire Pakistani nation was going through together. Yes, I'm talking about the Defense Day that was yesterday. And the one good part that I absolutely love about the Pakistani nation is they have so many different means of expression. They have so many different ways of celebrating one particular thing. I'll tell you why I'm saying this. So, for example, I'm talking about Defense Day that was yesterday. A lot of my friends who were, either married or who had young children, they were sort of showing them movies or they were sort of showing them dramas or, media content relating to the history of Pakistan, the history of the 65 war, why it is so important to celebrate the Defense Day as well. Then there were some people who were, celebrating it by using fireworks. Politicians, notable ones, especially early in the morning, started the day off with some speeches, public gatherings, and, again, reiterating upon the history and the importance of celebrating the defense of Pakistan. While there were a lot of people who spent the day or spent, hours of the day on their prayer mat, praying for the future of Pakistan, praying for the prosperity of the Pakistan, and praying for a stronger, more prosperous Pakistan in the future as well. While this was yesterday, yes, but today again, the 7th of September happens to be a very, very important day, and I'll tell you why. So for all of those who don't know, and I think pretty much that a lot of you must know, today happens to be the Air Force Day, ladies and gentlemen, Pakistan's Air Force Day. And this year, like every other year, we gather here at PTV World especially, and we will be talking about this throughout the day as well. We gather here to talk about the national heroes of Pakistan. We gather here to talk about the history, the incidents that led to the victory of Pakistan, not only in the 65 war, but whenever any sort of enemy has, turned an eye towards Pakistan. Pakistan Air Force happens to be one of the branches of Pakistan forces that has secured Pakistan and actually, I want to say, led it to where it is today. So when I was reading about the 65 war in detail, one of the lines that really struck me, it was really interesting for me to read. I literally had goosebumps. Imagine that, one of the persons that we know from the armed forces of India as well, General Chaudhry, who was the then chief of army staff, he made a very vague claim of, him wanted to come to Lahore Jamkhana and have a cocktail party because, well, of course, while he was delusional, he really wanted to conquer Pakistan, which was not possible. It was within few hours, and then within a day, this was because of the efforts of Pakistan Air Force, that, well, the nefarious plans of General Chaudhry could not actually happen. I mean, they were not realized. And that was just one incident. That was so many years ago. Now I'm going to take you back to last year as well, where another similar incident happened where, the armed forces or the PAF, rather Air Forces of the other country, our neighbor, they wanted to enter the premises of Pakistan, but within 11 seconds or even less, they were brought down and, well, their pilot even captured and then served tea because we are so warm as a nation as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, in essence, this is what we are going to be talking about today, Pakistan Air Force, the stories, what went behind the 65 war and even after that as well. And I'm so lucky that today I've been joined by a war veteran who actually started serving the country in 1953. It is just really huge honor for me to welcome him because he happens to be bestowed with the Hilal-e-Imtiaz military and also the Sitara-e-Imtiaz military, ladies and gentlemen. He is none other than retired Air Marshal Saab, Air Vice Marshal Saab, Saeed Ansari. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the show, sir.
Walaikum assalam.
It is an honor to have you over here, sir.
Thank you.
It is my pleasure. And, the good part about Pakistan that I absolutely love saying it as well, more than 64% of our generation is youth aging from 15 to 30, and they happen to be the future of Pakistan. So how could we forget actually bringing someone from the youth of Pakistan to talk about the future and discuss the importance of this day as well? He happens to be one of our favorite singers, a student as well. He's none other than Hussain Ali. Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome back. And all right, the good part, again, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be also joined on Skype through a voice call with, again, one of our very regular guests who happens to be a war veteran as well. He's none other than retired Air Marshal Yusuf Chaudhry Saab, but we will definitely get to him in a while. But ladies and gentlemen, to start the conversation with the war veteran over here, Mr. Saeed Ansari Saab. Sir, take us back to the 65 war. And when we started actually, celebrating the Pakistan Air Force Day, what was the environment like, especially during the war?
A very emotional question. 55 years is a long time.
Of course.
Memories often fade during this period, but not of 65. In that time, I was doing a staff college course
Okay.
and had not flown for almost 8-9 months.
Oh.
But the way things were moving, the course was suspended, and we were told on the 5th of the month that the course is suspended and you report to your operational units.
Okay.
So I reported to Moripur, PF Masroor,
Yeah.
it is called now. It was PF Moripur. And so everything was almost gearing up for war. And on the morning of the 6th, we had a very good indication that something will happen today.
Right.
They did. We were ready, we were running around for war. And at about 4 o'clock, President Ayub Khan came on the radio
Okay.
and to declare war.
Yeah.
And he made that famous speech. Everybody remembers when he said, addressing India, he said, "आप नहीं जानते कि आपने किस कौम को ललकारा है." It was so inspiring.
Yes, it still is inspiring.
Very inspiring, especially for people who are bubbling to go.
Right, right.
We had, this was about 4 o'clock.
Okay.
And we were given our target, destruction of Jamnagar. That was the task we was given.
Okay.
And our target time was 6:30 in the evening. That was a very little period left.
Yes.
So we did quick flight planning, and we took off 6 aeroplanes.
Okay.
As Wing Commander Hamid Qureshi leading, I was number 2. There were some others. And on the dot at 6:30, we pulled up at Jamnagar. And so it was the sunset, about sunset time. Hamid Qureshi, who was leading,
Yeah.
he came up on the radio. He said, "Look, I'm sorry, I am not in the correct position. I'll go around and you go ahead." So I was more or less in the correct position.
Okay.
I made a minor adjustment and went into my dive
Okay.
and dropped 8 1,000-pound bombs on the
Wow.
intersection of the runway, and they went bang on.
Wow.
Others followed me, and so Ravi, this whole thing took about 2.5 minutes, and we had done the job that we were supposed to
Oh,
do.
brilliant. So you had a task and you completed it in 2.5 minutes.
2.5 minutes.
Oh,
it's,
wow. And this is actually the valor and the, I want to say the bravery and the courage of the Pakistan Air Force that we are talking about. But just a minute, sir, before we move further, as I mentioned, we have actually been joined online by retired Air Marshal Yusuf Chaudhry Saab, and I actually have a lot to converse with him as well regarding this specific day. Hello, assalamu alaikum, sir. Are you here with us?
Walaikum, I'm with you.
Thank you so much for joining us, sir. It's always a pleasure to have you, especially on this particular day. So to begin with, Yusuf Chaudhry Saab, I want you to highlight how significant it is to celebrate entirely and to, or rather dedicate an entire day to the Pakistan Air Force.
I think it's a very important day for Pakistan Air Force. The reason why a separate day was being celebrated by Pakistan Air Force is that it was seen, of course, by everyone, but that by 7th of September, Pakistan Air Force had completely overpowered Indian Air Force. So we started to celebrate 7th September as Pakistan Air Force Day, because after that it was one-way game and we had superiority in the skies. And why it is very important is because we have history related to 1965 war. Our elders they were our heroes. They were our hero to be followed. They set very high standards for us, and we tried to maintain those standards. and the people who came after us, they tried to maintain those standards which we gave them. As a result of that, if you see last year, February 27th episode, they proved that we are as good as we were in 1965, or maybe we have improved a little, and we are far better than our adversary. And we taught them a lesson one day, reminded them what they had faced in 1965. So these days
Absolutely.
ought to be celebrated because they tell the new generation what is our history, what our elders had done for us, what we have to do for our future generations.
Absolutely. Yusuf Chaudhry Sahab, you very rightly said that last year, again, we sort of, displayed how readily prepared our forces are. In no time, we responded very well. But I think if you have been watching the show, we also have here in the studio Saeed Ansari Sahab, and he was just mentioning a story from the 65 war where he said within 2.5 minutes, he was done with his task along with his team as well. So I want you to narrate some of the stories from, when the time when you were a part of the war as well, especially. And I think you mentioned as well, Yusuf Chaudhry Saab and Ansari Saab as well, that Air Force happens to get the news about the upcoming war first before anyone else does. So how do you manage with that kind of pressure and, that kind of panic as well? But we will get the answer right after this very short break, sir. Please stay on the call with us as well. And you guys stay tuned too. Good morning. Welcome back to Well This Morning, ladies and gentlemen, where today we have dedicated the entire show, rather the entire day, towards commemorating and celebrating the sacrifices made especially by the Pakistan Air Force in line of duty, in line of war, off war as well. And before we headed out to a very short break, we were joined online by Yusuf Chaudhry Saab, who happens to be a retired Air Marshal. Yusuf Chaudhry Saab, can you hear me? So before we went out on a short break, I was asking you what inspires you when you are sitting alone in your cockpit thousands of feet above the ground level, where you cannot even listen to yourself. You're the first one who finds out about the war. What inspires you to save your nation?
So first of all, I must have narrated this incident before as well. One
Yes.
night when I was flying at night uh, over Islamabad or close to Islamabad, this was 1985 when our Kahuta was under threat, and it was expected that enemy may come and destroy our effort to make a nuclear bomb. So it was very important to protect Kahuta at that time. And I, being an F-16 pilot, we were the only aircraft which had night capability. So we were deputed to look after that area.
Right.
So my cap time combat air patrol time was 11 to 1 o'clock. When I came at 11 o'clock, moon was up. It was a moonlit night. Generally light for Islamabad. I was orbiting between uh, Ahmedabad and Murray. It
Right.
was month of December, I remember, and all the hilltops, they were covered with white snow. So this was all right, but after some time, I started to see that all the lights started to go off. There was hardly any light which was on.
Okay.
That meant that almost everybody has gone to sleep. I could also see that uh, moon has gone down, so it was a pitch dark night. That's the time it came to my mind, people who are in their cozy bed sleeping. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, of course, Yusuf Saab. Please carry on.
Yeah. So people who are sleeping in their cozy beds, they must not be having any idea that a person is in the air and it was feeling a little cold, although temperature controlled cockpit I was sitting in, but looking at these hill peaks in the month of December covered with snow and no one to talk to, no one is around you. giving that feeling for isolation. I said they have no idea that someone is paying the price for their comfortable, cozy night. And I was not the only one, of course.
Yeah.
There are hundreds of Jawans on the border doing the same thing. There are Navy guys doing the same thing in the sea. So that's the feeling. Of course, we take pride that if I'm awake, my countrymen, they're in millions, they have at least sound sleep. So that is the thing which takes you along because that's a very big achievement for you that you are
Definitely.
doing something for the nation, you're doing something for the country. And let me tell you, Pakistan Air Force has been trained in such a way that we're around the clock, we are there to protect our airspace.
Right.
There's a certain number of pilots, certain number of controllers who are on the duty around the clock.
Right.
India tried to check that how alert we are during peacetime. It was, I remember, April 1959, Eid Day. They
Yeah.
thought we'll be too busy in celebrating Eid, and this is the time they can violate our airspace and do a bit of reconnaissance. So they set the camera close to Pindi. Immediately, two F-86s from Peshawar, they
Okay.
within minutes, the takeoff was shot down. Both the pilots and navigator, they landed close to Pindi in a village. They were captured, of course, treated well. We are good at that. We offered tea, and but in that case, we offered them sweets because it was
Wow.
Eid day. But that was uh, an indication to them that there is no time of the day, there is no day of the year when Pakistan, of course, is not alert and not ready to defend its territorial integrity.
Very brilliantly said, Yusuf Chaudhry Saab, and thank you so much actually for taking out time on this specific day. And you know, where you mentioned that you were the only one sitting in your cockpit and knowing that you're saving the nation, we actually, as the civilians or the innocent people who are sleeping at the night, they do realize that it is because of the courageous and the brave soldiers and pilots like you, Chaudhry Saab, that we owe our safety to them, we owe our defense to them. And thank you so much for being there always in the past as well. And thank you so much to everyone who serves the nation in a particular way, especially in the armed forces or the Air Force or the Navy, whoever is responsible for, saving the frontiers of the nation as well. Thank you so much for joining us, Chaudhry Saab. And now back to the, very honorable guest we have over here in the studio. Ansari Saab, when we talk about the legends of Pakistan Air Force, the list is so long. So to begin with, when we talk about Air Marshal Asghar Khan Saab, you have been in his leadership. What was his leadership like?
Asghar Khan was truly the father of this Air Force.
Yes, indeed.
He came in, when he took over the Air Force, it was a very small 3-squadron Air Force.
Yeah.
But he was in a hurry to construct it. And he started recruitment program, training programs, and the leadership that he showed was unmatched.
Yes.
There are two names that you just cannot forget. What Asghar Khan Sahab started and laid the basic foundations, the solid foundations, and then came Air Marshal Noor Khan Sahab.
Yes, of course.
What a great person. What a great person he was. Bubbling with activity. He knew exactly what he wanted, and he could do it himself what he wants others to do.
Wow.
He could fly aeroplane. He could fight anything. He was an inspiration to everybody. He trained us. He got the training programs so that we didn't know the war was coming, but we were training for war. And this is what came handy when the war broke out.
Wow. So it was his leadership that always, made the Air Force to be prepared for war all the time.
Okay.
All right. And sir, when we're talking about the legends of Air Force, of course, we cannot forget the incident where, rather, I want to say it was a chronicle when we talk about 5 jets being shot down by MM Alim Saab in no time. When you listen to such stories, and actually you saw that firsthand, how was it?
It makes me very sentimental
Yes.
when you talk about those legends.
Yes.
Rafiqi, MM Alam, and others.
Yes.
They were all we were all in the academy together. We fought together, and what great! These are the people who sit into the cockpit, and the cockpit behaves differently.
Yeah.
They were brave. They were professional, highly professional, and they were highly inspiring for all their juniors. We were very sorry when we lost some of them,
Of course,
but they have left an impression, an imprint which is indelible.
Their legacy still stands.
that
That
is
is
the legacy.
absolutely true. But now, actually, I want to move on to you, Hussain, since you are today representing the youth of Pakistan. Do you think it is very, like we celebrate Defense Day, I mentioned already, we did yesterday. Now, today happens to be Air Force Day, and then we'll have a Navy Day to commemorate as well. Do you think it is important for the youth of Pakistan to learn their history? Right, because when I'll tell you, when I was in school, we used to have speeches about Defense Day and Air Force Day. There were functions, there were tableaus and skits. So I think as a kid, I was happy that I was learning about the history, right? It instills a different value in you. But we will definitely talk about that. Like Sir was saying, the discussion we were having was so sentimental, ladies and gentlemen. It really, really brings you back to the time when all of this was happening as well. It really brings you back to all the time or the hardships that not only the soldiers or the forces personnel, but innocent civilians had to go through as well. And in those times, you know, the nationalistic or patriotic songs that we heard nowadays, those were the real, I want to say, moves. I want to say those were what was motivating the people to fight for their country or to stay upright and fight for what was theirs, their national identity. So, Hussain, if you don't mind, can we have one of the old nationalistic songs to begin with so that we can reminisce what it was like to be a part of that Pakistan which was so full of nationalism?
से ए मुजाहिदों जहाँ का सबत है तुम ही से ए मुजाहिदों जहाँ का सबत है तुम्हारी मशल वफा फरोग़े शज्जिहात है तुम ही से ए मुजाहिदों जहाँ का सबत है से ए मुजाहिदों जहाँ का सबत है आरीज़ों के दिल नशी जबीने कायनात है बका की रोशनी हो तुम बना अंधेरी रात है शहीद की जो मौत है वो कौम की हयात है लहू जो है शहीद का वो कौम की ज़कात है से ए मुजाहिदों जहाँ का सबत है तुम ही से ए मुजाहिदों जहाँ का सबत है निसार जिस पे कौम हो हवा के शहसवार तुम हर राख की हो रोशनी दिलों का हो करार तुम अपनाओ एहतराम दीने हक के दोस्तदार तुम, जहाँ में अमन खैर की बिनाएं पायदार तुम। शहीद की जो मौत है वो कौम की हयात है, लहू जो है शहीद का वो कौम की ज़कात है। तुम ही से ऐ मुजाहिदों जहाँ का सबत है, तुम ही से ऐ मुजाहिदों जहाँ का सबत है। ज़कात दे अगर कोई ज़्यादा वो तवंगरी, बिखेर दे अनाज अगर तो फसल वो हरी भरी। चटे जो चंद डालियाँ न मुँहों न खिस्तान की, कटे जो चंद गर्दने तो कौम में हो जिंदगी। शहीद की जो मौत है वो कौम की हयात है।
Thank you so much, Hussain. This was brilliant. And you know, you very rightly said, Shaheed ki jo maut hai, kaum ki wo hayat hai. It is definitely because of the, I want to say, sacrifices, or I want to say the blood of the martyrs of Pakistan, or of the forces, or of the innocent civilians as well, that has led us to move forward as a nation. And till date, we have our own sovereignty and identity because of those sacrifices. Now, coming back to you, Ansari Saab, recently, our neighbor added Rafale jets, along with a lot of, other newer additions to their family of arsenal or equipment. Do you think they're sending a message to us, and how are we receiving that message? Do you think Pakistan can ever be even scared of such a thing?
You see, when enemy gets every new gun,
Yeah.
we have to take note of that.
Yeah.
We cannot ignore it. But they can obtain any number of weapons.
Right.
It is not the weapons that fight war. It is the people who fight war. It is the nations who fight war. It is their will and stamina that fight war. Number of weapons that they can collect does not mean anything if you have a solid nation, if you have a determination, if you have a well-knit nation. Nothing can happen to us.
Yes.
Don't have to worry.
Yes, you're absolutely right. It is not rather the weapons, or it is not the tanks which are going to fight the war. It is the strength, the spirit, and the people inside those tanks who are going to fight the war. This reminds me of numerous stories that I have particularly heard firsthand from war veterans ever since I have been doing this job. And ladies and gentlemen, speaking specifically about the 65 war, it really, really takes you back to that time where you hear the stories. When the war was declared on radio, it was announced. We heard that everyone was ready to participate in the war. Was it kids? Was it teenagers, women, men? Everyone wanted to go to the border and fight. Is it true? Paint us a picture of what was happening.
When the war was declared and we were planning, we had a large number of pilots. We were the senior-most, but then there were others. And they all wanted to go.
Yes.
And we had to tell them that, hold it, everybody can't be an opening batsman. So we said, all right, you'll get your chance. So we first went. And after having come back from that first raid, they were all waiting for them to go.
Okay.
And then I and Alam Siddiqui, we were in the first war.
Okay.
And we held a small conference. And as I said, we had dropped 8 1,000-pound bombs per aeroplane,
Yes.
and there were 6 of them.
Wow.
Therefore, we had dropped 48,000 pounds of bombs
Wow.
in those 2.5 minutes. And you can imagine what havoc they must have played on the ground.
Right.
And we acted a little selfish,
Oh.
and Alam and I decided to go again.
Okay. You wanted to have a second turn.
for the second mission.
Okay.
So that is where the thing was that we are not satisfied. People were bubbling to go and do something, especially the younger ones. We had to sort of hold them a little, take it easy, let the battle settle down, and then you can go. This was an unusual sort of scene.
Yes.
And it's very difficult to describe what was their feelings.
Right. I want to say I cannot, if not totally understand, I can definitely probably get a gist of it. Today, I can proudly say that if, God forbid, anything was to happen to my country in front of my eyes or in my life, I would not think twice to surrender my life to save my own country as well. So while we are discussing about the Pakistan Air Force, I think we have to definitely mention the notable heroes of Pakistan Air Force who not only sacrificed their lives, but just secured the identity or the sovereignty of Pakistan for ages to come as well. Rashid Minhas is one of the youngest we have to remember over here, bestowed upon with the Nishani-Haider as well. But recently, as we always mention the Pulwama incident from last year, squadron leader Hassan Siddiqui was the one who actually shot down the Indian plane and captured the Indian pilot Abhinandan as well. Now, one very important thing that I absolutely admire about the forces of Pakistan, we have a decorum, we have certain values, we adhere by the international standards of operations, we adhere to the Geneva Conventions because we are peaceful. So like last year, when we captured Abhinandan, he was, some say he was a prisoner of war, although the situation was not warlike, but even if he was a prisoner of war, we very respectfully handed him back to India. Pakistan forces have always maintained that standard and decorum, and they were always prepared to fight anything as well. Wow, what do you see, or how do you see the future of the forces of Pakistan?
The occasion that you described
Yes.
shows the maturity and the high standard of training that we have received.
Yes.
That is the high standards of morale and morality that prevails in Pakistan and also in the armed forces of Pakistan. We have a great future.
Yes.
That is what earns us respect in the Committee of Nations. We have always been respected. The action that we took Abhinandan, he was treated in the hospital, he was fed and well. He was quite happy, you must have seen on the TV.
Yes.
He was hale and hearty and very happy when he was going.
Right.
Yeah, that is the way we treat our prisoners. Yeah. So I think with that kind of thing, if our nation continues, there is nothing to worry.
Yes, I totally agree with you. And now, Ansari Saab, since we're now heading towards the end of the show, if you were to give a message to the younger generation of Pakistan who is watching you right now, what would you say to them?
The younger generation must remember that today's armed forces are no more that of gladiators. This is now a world of technology.
Yes.
You have to, if you want to defend your country, you have to learn basic sciences, you have to learn technology, you have to be very, very careful about what you're studying. It is the degrees that you get in the academic career before you come to the academy, because unless you are armed with the technology, it is difficult to maintain in the armed forces. So my message is to devote yourself to your studies, get prepared, and then join the armed forces.
Thank you so much for saying that, sir. And thank you so much for being our hero. We will cherish you today, tomorrow, forever as well. Thank you so much for being here. Hussain, towards the end, I want you, being the youth of Pakistan, to quickly give out the message to our viewers as well.
I will just give one message that being youth, and I will give my message to my fellows that we should set our goals and targets.
Yes.
We should set our goals and targets, and then we have to work on it to achieve those targets and goals.
Absolutely.
And I would say that we should act like a true patriot.
Yes.
And we should be making our country proud like our nation heroes.
That is beautiful. Thank you so much, Hussain, for saying that. And I really hope that all of us actually happen to make our country proud as well. Ladies and gentlemen, since we are remembering our heroes today, while yes, it happens to be PAF Day, Pakistan Air Force Day, today also happens to be the death anniversary of one of the very, very famous national poets, playwrights, screenwriters, prose writers of Pakistan. He happens to be Mr. Ahmed, Ashaf Ahmed rather, and everyone knows about him, everyone knows about his work as well. He was one of the initial people who were broadcast broadcasting on PTV as well. I am going to name out some of the very important works that he did, and they include Zavia, of course, one of the most popular, which has 3 volumes, and then there is Safre Mina, then there's Tali Thalle, Mehmane Bahar, Vidai Jang, so many more, Changiz Khan Ke Sunehri Shaheen, and the list goes on, ladies and gentlemen. This is a massive tribute from our side at PTV World to Ashaf Ahmed Saab on his death anniversary as well. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if there's anything you need to write to us, please do on our Facebook page with the name of World This Morning, on Twitter, World This Morning without a G. You can find this show along with all our other shows on YouTube as well with the name of PTV World, World This Morning. Take care, be safe, celebrate Pakistan like it deserves to be celebrated, and we are going to head out with another nationalist song, which Hussein is going to play for us. Hussein, do you have something prepared?
Yes, I can.
Okay, please go on.
ऐ वतन के सजीले जवानों, ऐ वतन के सजीले जवानों, मेरे नग़मे तुम्हारे लिए हैं, मेरे नग़मे तुम्हारे लिए हैं, ऐ वतन के सजीले जवानों। सरफरोशी है ईमान तुम्हारा, जुर्रतों के परस्तार हो तुम, जो हिफाजत करे सरहदों की, वो फलक बोस दीवार हो तुम। ऐ शुजात के जिंदा निशानों, मेरे नग़मे तुम्हारे लिए हैं, मेरे नग़मे तुम्हारे लिए हैं, ऐ वतन के सजीले जवानों, ऐ वतन के सजीले जवानों, ऐ वतन के सजीले जवानों।